Alright, this is the second part for 7-2, solving systems of equations using addition and subtraction. Now this is the story problem part of this section, and again there will be lots of story problems in this chapter, as well as there was, just like there was last chapter, there are a lot of story problems, and the nice thing is they're all done the same way, so the more we keep doing these, the better we should get at them. So, first thing I want you to do, just like in the last chapter, is for each of these story problems, I want you to start out by telling me what your x and what your y variable are going to represent. So, let's read through this first story problem. It says 4 times one number minus 3 times another number is 12. 2 times the first number added to 3 times the second number is 6. Find the two numbers. Well, identifying your variables in this case should be pretty easy. We're going to call x simply the first number, meaning that we'll call y the second number. That's what we don't know. We don't know what the first number is. We don't know what the second number is. And that's, again, obviously what we're trying to find, because right here it says find the numbers. So, let's read this first sentence again. And it says 4 times one number. So, 4 times x, 4 times one number, probably the first number, minus 3 times another number. So, minus 3y is 12. Means equals 12. There you go. There's the first equation. Second equation, it says 2 times the first number. And again, it said first there, so if you used x as your first number, the 4 times one number, you decided to use that as your first number. So now, in the second part, it's saying 2 times the first number that you used, so 2x. And then it says added to 3 times the second number, so added to 3 times y is 6, so equals 6. So that was a pretty basic, easy setup, and as you can see here we have our system of equations, and you should also notice right away they're ready to be eliminated, because negative 3y and positive 3y will cancel out if you add these two equations together. So let's add these two equations together. 4x plus 2x is 6x. Negative 3y plus 3y is the one that cancels, and you have equals 12 plus 6 is 18. So I'm going to move this up here. 6x equals 18. I wrote a little big on this one, but 6x equals 18. Let's divide both sides by 6, and x equals 3. So again, there is your first equation, or your first answer, sorry. Your first answer is x equals 3. And again, as always, we're going to take this answer and plug it into one of the original problems. So, let's see. Once again, I'm probably going to pick, no, you know what, this time I'm going to pick the second equation. And I'm going to plug x, I'll use a different color here. I'm going to plug my x into the second equation, right there. So my second equation now reads, instead of 2x, it's going to be 2 times 3 plus 3y equals 6. And I simply used the second equation this time because the numbers seemed smaller. It seemed easier to solve for me. So 2 times 3 is 6 plus 3y equals 6. I'm going to subtract 6. So 3y equals 0. Divide by 3 means y equals 0. So that tells us that, and I'm going to go back here and erase some of our work here so I can write my answer. That tells us that our two numbers are 3 and 0, and you write this as a full sentence. So the full sentence will read, the first number is 3, and the second number is 0. So, pretty basic first story problem there, as far as story problems go. So, let's move on to number 6. And again, down here, first thing I'm going to do is identify my variables. Now, this is more of a real life story problem that we normally see on tests and quizzes, so let's read this one carefully. In 1999, the U.S. produced about 2 million more motor vehicles than Japan. Together, the two countries produced about 22 million motor vehicles. How many vehicles were produced in each country? So, again, that last sentence a lot of times is going to tell you what your variables are going to be because it's asking you what you don't know. How many vehicles were produced in each country? So X is going to be the number of vehicles produced in the U.S., and Y is going to be the number of vehicles produced in Japan. Again, the two things we don't know and the two things they're asking for. So there's the setup. There's what our variables represent. So now we need to make equations. So again, this is when I go back and I read each sentence. In 1999, the U.S. produced about 2 million more vehicles than Japan. All right, now, this is where a lot of people are going to make a mistake, and they're going to say 2x equals y, and that is incorrect. That is wrong, because what you're saying is you're saying take x, which is the number of vehicles the U.S. produced, and multiply it by 2, and you're going to get how many vehicles Japan produced. But you got that backwards, because you don't want to multiply how many the U.S. produced, because they produced more. It says the U.S. produced 2 million more vehicles than Japan. So the 2 million more is going to be put with Japan. Another thing you're going to not want to do is you don't want to say 2 times. It's not 2 times more motor vehicles. It's just 2 million more. So the way you're going to write this is you're going to say, okay, X is how much the U.S. produced. X is how many vehicles the U.S. produced. That's going to be equal to the number of vehicles Japan produced plus 2, meaning plus 2 million. So X equals Y plus 2. Now, some people are going to say, well, isn't there another way to write that? And yes, there is. There's another way to write this. You could say the number of vehicles the U.S. produced minus 2 million equals the number that Japan produced. So you could say X minus 2 equals Y, which, again, you'll notice that if you just subtract this 2 on both sides, you'd get that same thing. So either one of those would be fine. I usually go with this. The amount the U.S. produced is equal to the amount Japan produced plus 2. And there's your first equation. Now, the second equation says together the two countries produced about 22 million motor vehicles. So that means the amount the U.S. produced plus the amount Japan produced equals 22 million. So there are your two equations. Now, you might notice, and if you're following along with Mr. Musselwest's class here, in the last section we talked about substitution. And in this problem, this would be a real easy one to substitute because you already have x equal to something. You could plug that right in there. But that's not what we're doing in this section. We're using elimination. So since we're using elimination, we want to set these up to eliminate. And in order to do that, they need to be in the same format. And this format that this bottom equation's in, x plus y equals 22, is the standard form, and that's the form we usually use to make elimination happen. So what I'm going to have to do up here is I'm going to have to subtract y on both sides to turn this equation into standard form, which would be x minus y equals 2. And now with these two equations, we are ready to eliminate. Again, in this case, the y's will eliminate right away, so I just have to add these two equations together. 1x plus 1x is 2x. Negative y plus y cancels. 2 plus 22 is 24. Divide both sides by 2, and x equals 12. And again, you should know right away what that means, and that means that the U.S. produced 12 million motor vehicles. Now, you would put this 2 back into one of the equations, but I don't really need to do that math, because obviously if the U.S. produced 12 and this first sentence said that it produced 2 million more than Japan did, Japan must have produced 10, right? So that is what you're going to write here for your full sentence answer. So there you go. The U.S. produced 12 million vehicles and Japan produced 10 million. All right, I'm going to let you, well, you know what? We're going to get the last problem set up together, and then I'm going to let you attempt it on your own. Again, we need to start getting better at these story problems. So here is our last story problem. A youth group and their leaders visited Mammoth Cave. 2 adults and 5 students in one van paid $77 for the Grand Avenue tour of the caves. 2 adults and 7 students in a second van paid $95 for the same tour. Find the adult price and the student price of the tour. So, like I said, I'll get you started here as long as, at least with the setup here, or identifying your variables, because again, that's a critical point here. What is your x and what is your y? And again, it almost always tells you that in that final sentence. Find the adult price and student price of the tour. And that's going to be x is the price for an adult ticket, and y is going to be the price for a student ticket. Again, assuming that they're giving them a ticket, it's really the admission price for the tour. But if you think of it as a ticket, it might make it a little bit easier. So there's what your x and y represent. Go ahead and, on your own, pause this video, try to set it up and solve, and then just check your answer with what I have here in a second. All right. Okay, so did you get these two equations? 2x plus 5y equals 77. That came from the fact that 2 times the adults and 5 times the students ended up equaling $77. And the second equation, the red equation, 2 adults and 7 students paid $95. So there you have your equations. The solving should be just like any other elimination problem. In this case, 2x and 2x are the exact same, so I'm off to subtract them. And again, subtraction means adding the opposite, so I'm going to change my subtraction sign to an add sign, change all the signs for the second equation, and now just add. 2x minus 2x cancels. 5y minus 7y is negative 2y equals, and 77 minus 95 is negative 18. So then we divide by negative 2, and y equals positive 9. Positive 9 tells you that, which one was y? That the student tickets were $9. Well, again, to finish this out, you're going to take that 9 and plug it back into one of the equations. I'm going to pick the top one again. So my top equation now reads 2x plus 5 times 9 equals 77. So I've got 2x plus 45 equals 77. Subtract 45 on both sides. 2x equals 32. Yeah, 32. And last step, to divide by 2, and x equals 16. So there you have it. The adult price was $16, and the student price was $9, written out as a full sentence. There you go. So there's your story problem examples. Again, there will be lots of story problems on these homework assignments and this upcoming test. Make sure you're attempting the story problems on the homework, asking questions in class, and just pretty much attempting to learn this. So Good luck with the story problems, and ask questions when you get stuck.